Hello, my name is Monica Sylvia and I'm from English Studies Program, Universitas Pajajaran. It's such an honor and pleasure today to present my paper and the presentation whose topics make me confused from the beginning com- started to compile my scripts even until today. The questions such as, since gender is performative, never complete and culturally constructed, why in this novel especially Naomi Alderman the power represent that women's effort to lead seems fail. I hope that with the Q&A session later, there will be a glimmer of new ideas, new answers related to my research which is far from being completed. While compiling this paper, I was reminded of Beyonce's songs Run the World. What if girls run the world? This gender-reversed novel, The Power by Naomi Alderman, a British novelist, first published in 2016, the novel might be as a response to the issue of the repression of women's gender identity, which continues to be echoed recently. This seems to justify that women are dominated by men through desperation in ritual, culture, and social life. The novel presents the issue that is built by the narrator and the views of women characters to give criticism and reaction to the politics of male domination. Each of the characters in the novel has a different background and role. Roxy, a daughter of gangster from London, Tunde, a journalist from Nigeria, Ellie, a 16-year-old girl who has an abusive foster family from South America, and Margaret, a low-level politician who eventually becomes a governor. They have a biological similarity, the ability to electrocute. This Alderman work, like most of those who review it, is a continuation of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. Atwood was also her tutor in compiling this electrical novel. So the power is due to the appearance of a skin, a small organ at the back of the neck, consisting of a network of nerves that have the property of emitting an electrical current. The origin of this power, as Ferriera argued, a physical reaction to a substance that gave protection against gas attack during the Second World War, and association with other genetic factors in this alternative timeline. The female characters in the power act as the protagonists of teenagers, women, and mothers in the field of government and radical religious leaders who have electrical power. It's not only play a role in leading other women and especially men, but dominates men in terms of sexual power. Electrical power that is owned by women becomes one of the fulfillment of something. In this context, as argued by Miller, this reversal of sexual power or gender powers to divine social conditioning which demands female compliance, which in my opinion is also horrific. So when we have done and with a brief explanation of the story of the novel, I'm going to discuss two main things, namely how the reverse of gender power has something to do with power itself, repression, and resistance. In discussing the relationship among them, I use and elaborate the argument by Foucault. He argued that when there is a power, there is resistance. However, the resistance as a form of reaction to oppression and power seems to overlap. Due to the end of the narrative, which actually has never get the end, that has an ambiguous meaning. And the second thing that I will discuss about, which is my favorite part, is that the power shows how religious element and surprisingly a women god is contained in this novel. So patriarchy has very long and strong roots. It creates a dominating force both to women and to men. In this case, Foucault argues that the repression that has occurred is centered on reason, namely historically evident, having solid roots and reason. It is not only the roots, this also relates to other things in which Foucault argues as power has relation from one point to another. As I can show you, it also has something to do with repression, to resistance, and will it come back to the power? Or in other words, does the object of repression when becomes the subject of resistance to really acquire the power. Alderman's work seems out of history because it is 500 years earlier in the future. However, with this time background, something that may or may not happen can be seen. Alderman shows in every woman character who come from different places and meet to declare they of the girls. By them, the permanent, repetitious, inert, and self-reproducing, as Foucault argued as means of power, are depicted in a particular society. It is for the sake of creating a new order. As I said earlier, female characters have a biological power, like electrical eels that can electrocute. The static of electricity was mentioned in the novel when Roxy's mother is beaten by an unknown man. Roxy uses it solely in the form of self-defense resistance. Unlike what Roxy did when she was under pressure to defend herself, she also used her strength in revenge. As argued by Foucault, the relation of power exists in the same parties in different circumstances, so an active role is needed in every place wherever they are. In line with Foucault's argument, Houghton states that there are 7 manifesto points for feminist global constitutionalism. The novel presents one of the manifesto requirements, that is, the right to live vote. This manifestation, as Houghton contends, is power, which is delivered by the protagonist of women's electricity. In other words, the electricity is the metaphor of power itself to face resistance. In discussing matters relating to deliberately created biological forces, Haraway states that the cyber concept allows humans and animals to transcend boundaries. This power is not only an intermediary to electrocute men, but there is a kind of sensation when female characters use it when dealing with male characters. For example, when Tunda and Nur, as Haraway argued, cyborg signal disturbingly and pleasurably tight coupling. As the event of the narrative progresses, the female characters increasingly have authority in every side of life and the area they live in. Seems to be the opposite of what Haraway said, that there is no place for women in idealized social locations such as homes, markets, paid workplaces, countries, schools, hospitals, and churches. In this novel, the female characters occupy and fill every locus of life, as seen in the following quote. So in a country that they called Besapara, female characters kill almost all men. They say that they still need men in terms of reproduction, but do not need them all. In this case, Foucault states that one of the characteristics of sovereign power is to decide on life and death. However, the concept of genocide contained in the novel is not only a reaction to resistance, but also the strength of female characters who control the entire population. They show that a new rule is created, become guardians of man, with men who are restricted in the movement of their life. In other words, women as monsters, as argued by Miller, depicted with the aim overthrowing the patriarchal mythology skirting contemporary political efforts to curtail women's freedoms. Ruther argues that only male can represent God as leader in charge and in a society, or that women are created by God to subordinate to males and thus sin by rejecting this subordination. Alderman's work also consists of religion element which is repeated and developed. The transformation of Ellie becomes Mother Eve comes from the voice, which she always hears while in doubt. In other words, there is a term called third man syndrome, psychological tactics performed by brain when experiencing trauma. Not only as the leaders of the women's army, she also become the religious leader that she designed. Your goddess is Our Lady, as Mother Eve said in the novel that reveals the concept of divinity in women. This is in line with Weber's, which states that this novel has a Judeo-Christianity setting which places the Virgin Mary as a motherly role that is in a higher position than Christ. Mother Mary guided her infant son with kindness and with love. Furthermore, Full argues that the personification of Christianity which is manifested by Mother Eve in the novel is called Mariology. Through this, in line with what was said by Gebra, rewriting religious readings as contained in the novel has its own purpose. However, the requirement of a new form is not by rejecting a gospel in every belief, but by re-narrating voices and experiences that have historically been silenced or denied. Mother Eve said that Jews look to Miriam, not Moses, for what you can learn from her. Muslims look to Fatima, not Muhammad. Buddhists remember Tara, the mother of liberation. Christians pray to Mary for your salvation. But you have been taught lies. God lies within you. God has returned to earth to teach you, in the form of this new power. The main purpose of hers is to fulfill the requirements of the new rules, new place. As argued by Heretic, when there is a religion in science fiction, the adjoining hierarchical structure automatically reflects each individual follower, an environment, infrastructure, leadership system, historical and evolutionary antecedent. The concept of religion by Mother Eve manifested in her ritual, mysticism, and the sacred. However, Mother Eve's invitation to create a new, comfortable, and peaceful place seems a contradiction to what happened at the end. However, it's such an irony when female characters say that violence occurs when men lead, because in the narrative when it reaches the end, the chaotic flow of violence happened. The female characters do fight against what has happened so far, but the strength they have is ultimately the end. As argued by Foucault, resistance united by forces is never in an exterior position. In other words, no matter how great the strength of resistance waged, especially by women in this novel, is it a futile thing? Tunde, a CNN journalist comes from Nigeria, is the only male character is given the right to speak by the narrator. He records and publishes everything that happens for documenting Day of the Girls. A suspect that in his novel, the women are active and the men are passive. However, this assumption makes a confusion. The electrical power is in women bodies, but when it is forced to be taken for use by men, it turns out that it doesn't care who uses it. I also take this assumption by including argument of Haraway, a world without gender, that depicts in this quotation. Scans go back to him. It says, I'm ready, come on my son. Whatever you need, I've got it. Power doesn't care who uses it. The scan doesn't rebel against him, doesn't know that he's not its rightful mistress. It just say, yes, yes I can. Yes, you've got it. Alderman ended up her narrative by an incomplete apocalypse. In reaching the conclusion, there seemed to be a failed irony that filled with radicalism. It is not only to abolish patriarchy, but also to eradicate men completely. The reversal of gender roles based on the physical or biological determination by women in literary works, especially in The Power by Naomi Alderman, remind us of the future destruction of the world if the mistrust of gender roles is still happening. I'm actually a little bit confused how to end this presentation because there is a lot of things that I should be discussed more, but at least to close, we know that race, class, and gender are not eternally given by God as the order of creation, but are social construct and can be changed. The Power by Naomi Alderman reminds us that we need a more just and loving world. Is it just a hope, or can actually make it happen? Thank you.